So in the previous video, we fed the foxes by hand. Now let's see if we can figure out how to feed them from a bucket. That means we're going to need a buff that's put off in a radius rather than just given by a food. So the fox food in is being given by a tool. But we can also give it by an object. So a placeable can give off a buff. This one, if we look at the placeable buffs, we have this example here where it's a sprinkler, it gives watered, and it's giving it off in a radius of 150 here. So instead of working like the sprinkler, what we want is for the food to be given off by the food bucket while it's not empty, while there's actually a producer in it. So let's just copy this one. We're going to call this one out because we're going to give it off this time. We're not going to actually receive a buff. We don't need any of this stuff. What we do need is this stuff over here. So we want it to can output. So our choices are active while empty, active while placed, active while building, active while ready, active while expired. So I think what we want is these three. We want it while it's placed, while it's building, and while it's ready. But then when it's ready, it'll auto collect, and that should take it back to empty, and it should stop giving off the buff if we've set this up right, I think. It doesn't require another buff to work, so we just need a radius. So let's set the radius to 1,000, and let's just set the add amount to 1. And we have to add this buff to the things that are going to give it off, which are food bucket. Okay, let's try that. I have not actually set a buff up like this way before, so we'll see if I pick the right settings. So our foxes are all hungry, and that made all of their hunger symbols go away, and they're all producing hearts. So that's good. But now what we're going to do is just sort of watch our bucket of grapes and see if after we collect them, things are still okay. So it should still be, if I collect from them now, they should still get food from it. So we didn't even see their hunger symbols. They just started producing right away because the bucket of food was still here. Now the bucket's empty, so let's collect from our foxes. And they all stayed hungry because they had no food. So that's exactly what we would expect to happen. I was like, why isn't that working? But I don't actually have enough apples on me. Let me just hit F1. Okay, let's do a quick test here where we're going to put out all the foxes. We're going to put out food bucket. And we're going to try to fill it. Oh, we haven't bought the land. So we put out the grapes and their hunger symbols all went away. Perfect. To make sure the other ones work, we'll just pop the other foods here too, but it doesn't matter. They're already being fed by the grape bucket. So there's still buckets that have food in it, so everybody's still happy. That fox grew up because I collected from it 3 times. Turned into a mum. And this last bucket still has food in it, which was what fed them that time. But now all the buckets are empty, so when I collect from them this time, they should all get hungry again. Now you could definitely set up this system so that the food bucket would only empty if there was foxes in the pen. You could set up another buff that would make those buckets only, those producers only run if there was a fox nearby. I don't think I'm going to worry about that level of complexity here because I think this is a nice clean design where as long as you have a bucket full of food, you can just make it last 24 hours and then your players don't have to feed the pen of foxes again until the next day. And if you wanted to control like how many foxes it could feed, you could even make it have a very small radius so that it would only feed the foxes right beside it. I think that's enough complexity for the game that I'm trying to make here. But do feel free to experiment and try things like that to try make the bucket producers only produce if there's a fox nearby, otherwise they could just sit full. Okay, that's it for this video. In the next video, we're going to start setting up for the actual fox breeding.